Great. Everyone's coming in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 58, 57. This is an impromptu call with Mr. Arash. But I'm sure he's prepared. 8's been around for a long time. It's been doing awesome work since the beginning. I think you were, definitely the 8th subnet to ever come into existence.
That's correct.
So Arash, I'm going to spend just a little bit of time at the beginning talking to the community, talking to people about what we are doing behind the scenes at OpenTensor. It's always a good time for me to speak into the crowd and talk about the technologies that we're working with right now, and then we'll jump into speaking about Subnet 8. Hopefully, we get a chance to take a look at how Subnet 8 is doing and where you've gone. Like, it's been quite a progression. But before we do that, I think that, there you go. Look, there's the comment, timeline for detail. We've been focusing a lot on the incentive problems that people are having throughout the network. Incentive disalignment. And when there's incentive disalignment, you can use social behaviors to keep things in check for a while. And Arash called me this morning and said, hey, we're putting together a committee to talk about subnet weighting and how we can be more transparent as a group of people that are trying to make sure this machine runs properly and distributes value in the right places. I think it's effectively the most difficult problem. Allocation, right? Subnets themselves have been working really well at doing allocation, but now we have the meta allocation problem, and it's Bittensor's white whale right now. Currently, we need to solve it in this, you could say, collective democratic communication mechanism that happens on Discord channels and on Twitter. It's not very productive. But I wanted to give you the mic here, Arash, and talk about let's continue the conversation that we were having this morning in regards to how we think it would be best for the community to come together and communicate and talk about weight allocations and corruption or bias or anything like that in the network. So I'll hand you the mic, Arash, because it's a great place for us to start.
Yeah, I actually am most excited to come on to Novelty Search and talk to you, not about SN8 and about some of the other things that are really mostly just community driven. I feel, what we've done with PTN, it's fantastic and it's in a really good place and it's going to drive a ton of value. A lot of partners already lined up, a lot of them already using it, ready to onboard onto the Request network. We have some massive partnerships that are in the pipeline with some really big players. I'd rather just not concentrate on that and exactly what you're talking about, which is kind of like, what are the things that we can build for this community to give back and to make it stronger? And one of them is one of the things that we talked about today, obviously, which was actually just tweeted about this. I wasn't going to talk about it until we have everything kind of more finalized, but we are working on an idea like to better support our validators in deciphering and distribution of weights to different subnets, and to kind of find more alignment and provide more alignment across validators, creating this community-driven committee. So this committee is provided. We're creating we have actually a server right now called Committee Construction, and what we're doing in it is creating pretty much the guidelines and the bylaws of this committee. And what this committee will do is it'll be an impartial committee. It doesn't have any validators in it, doesn't have any SN owners in it. And people that are unaffiliated with these entities that want to be a part and give back and be able to decipher what are the subnets that should be given weights, which ones should not, through objective analysis, through set criteria, and what is the standard at the point in time, essentially, for what a subnet should be doing. So as time goes on, the expectation grows, right, for what a subnet should be capable of doing. And so the committee will be able to kind of adapt with that, right? And we're thinking this is all being formed in real time in the background. But the idea is, they'll be able to help validators better determine where weights are set. Kind of, it's a little bit of an oversight committee, but it is also like it's a helping hand. It's really a helping hand to validators to figure out and monitor all the activity going on, to better assist them. And it gives the control back to the community a bit, to determine who should be a part of this committee. The terms of the committee members, potentially even re-election, just trying to drive more power back to the community. That's the whole idea of this proposal, and it's kind of an intermediate for what we have now, until really we have STAO and DTAO in place. And the idea here is, I think a lot of people are going to want to take time, like something we talked about constant in our chat today, is giving that time for people to get acclimated on testnet to DTAO and STAO. And what this will do is allow us to kind of have a little bit more community control or community oversight into how things are done today. That's the way I think we want everything to run, right? At Bittensor is, having a lot more control in the hands of the community. And so, yeah, I think it's just a powerful piece that we can add. So I know we have really great, foundational community members part of this conversation right now on this server. And we're looking to drive it, and we'll have a proposal out of how this kind of like a rough copy of all this out hopefully the next week. And then from there, we'll look to get feedback and iterate, and hopefully have this out soon.
What's going to be the name of it, Arash?
I have no idea. I'm just a piece of this, of this thing. I'm not sure. I just think it was the committee. I don't know, man. I don't know what we're gonna call it, but I just feel like it's a good thing to have. What'd you say?
The Raumidi?
Yeah. I think like something like that would be pretty cool. Something based off like a round table, but I just the Rao MIDI would be cool. I would go Church of Rao, but I think that's been deprecated. but I think it's just a really great thing that we can do to empower our community and just more visibility. Like there's a lot of times where people question why something is some way, and having this objective criteria and this group that's been elected, right, to be able to figure out and decipher what's going on behind the hood of all these subnets, miner interactions with subnet owners, validators interactions with subnet owners. It's just something that I think we really need right now. So yeah, that's kind of what the goal is.
Arash, you're giving me time. And I think that we do need time to roll things out in a way that works for everyone. And so right now, our focus at the foundation is, how can we focus on small incentive disalignment problems like, say, commit reveal and weight copying? And those are coming out as soon as we can, as well as things like the take on validators. These would be our like mid-level incentive problems that can be solved fairly quickly, and we're working on these kind of things. But also when it comes to DTAO, people have called for ways in which we can have something more like a hybrid model where people don't have to take risk, and subnets can exist which don't want to participate in this ecosystem of DTAO. So we're working out a bit of a hybrid model, which is really interesting, and it basically allows there to be both STAO and DTAO subnets living together on the chain at the same time without that creating too much interference. So that's one thing to announce, and my commitment is to try and get a fully fledged testnet for STAO and DTAO with people's balances so they can work with it, and potentially even all of the network state from Bittensor out by next week. So next week, people will be able to play with these concepts and see how this works using the CLI, using the newest branch. In fact, we already do have some sort of test network available right now that people can play with. If they want the link to play with the DTAO testnet, I can give it to them. It's just in a pretty chaotic state. So that's really interesting. But I do want to actually talk to you, Arash, about specifically your subnet and the journey that you've been on since the beginning with understanding Bittensor's incentives. Can you take us through?
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. I think you just learn so much. I mean, it's I was listening to the call. I think it was like a couple of weeks ago with BitAds, and I think it was a conversation about specifically about how miners are one step ahead. And when they were mentioning like trying to work through some of the issues, just trying to like bug fix or find any potential bugs, acting as a miner. I think right after that you said, yeah, miners are always one step ahead. If there's something there, they already know it. And I was just nodding my head because I was like, yeah, absolutely. There's hundreds of miners on one team trying to put everything together. So yeah, you learn so much. I mean, quite humbling experience, to be honest, to create an SN and to have all these participants. And you're definitely not you're not the smartest person in the room by far or network. When you create one of these miners, the people contributing and participating are just so smart, which is great. It's a blessing to have such a great community. And I would say, the journey has been quite crazy. We originally really concentrated on time series prediction. This is something we also had a call on about Const. It's like we originally concentrated on time series prediction, and we learned so much in that period where we were trying to figure out the best ways and incentive mechanisms to get miners to provide us, predictions in the way that we wanted. And we just realized, the most important thing as an SN owner is really time to value. That's at least from our perspective, is how can we drive the most value for the overall Bittensor network, right? So that we can produce revenue as soon as possible. And that's kind of always been our objective. And we realized if you just push one part of our learnings was really push miners as hard as you can to provide the most value as possible, right? Like you make the challenge as hard as you can, and make it hard to get Tau. Like that's a big goal. So those are some things that we learned along kind of this journey is kind of how do we push learning to push miners in a certain way to get what we want. And it's kind of ruthless in a way a little bit, but that's what we need. We need to make it really hard to get Tau. And so that's something that we really learned. I'd say that's a major takeaway we learned. And the second thing is, how do we align? Now we're getting to the point where it's kind of like, how do we align incentive with revenue? So now we have partners. Now we're having clients come on board. Okay, how do we align what the incentive mechanism that we're creating? How do we align it so that, say, you just say, give me the top 10 miners. Okay, those top 10 miners are exactly what we're going to plug in to a product. And then it's just like a runnable, usable product that's immediately sellable, right? So like the incentive perfectly aligns with the output or what's received from miners. And so that's really where we're at now. And that's another big learning. It's like, how do we align those two things the best we can so they're perfect fit, right? So it's less work on our clients and less work on our validators when they want to sell the output. It's just plug and play on their end, right? Like you know who the top miners are based off of what clients' expectations are, which is really fascinating. So yeah, kind of heading in that direction. And I would say in general, like the other thing we've learned in our time building on Bittensor is learn to adapt. I mean, like we're all startups, we're all growing and learning and pivoting and pushing. And you're not going to get everything right the first time, right? Like you're going to come up with new ideas, you're going to come up with things that might pivot or evolve. And it's okay, right? Like it's okay to not have everything be perfect in the beginning. And it's just about how willing you are to push through a lot of those challenges and change the scope, change what you need to do, and make it in a really thought out project planning process to make sure like validators can shift with you and everything is seamless. And that's actually something we did, right? We had time series prediction subnet, and we realized the time to value, it was just going to take longer than we expected. And we needed to push for more value faster. And so we forced miners really to provide us valuable signals. So we judge the way that SN8 works now is miners take their ML, their models that they've created, and they need to create and provide valuable signals from their based off strategies. So they're providing the network with long, short signals, right? So they say when to long the market or when to short the market. And by the market, I mean pretty much any asset class. We're pretty much heading to the fact where you can like choose to long or short crypto, Forex, indices, eventually metals, oils, or oil. So, you know, heading in the direction of just many asset classes that you can compete on. And, you know, it's something where it's highly competitive. I mean, you're taking your predictive model and you're building a strategy around it. And so far the results have been outstanding. The top miners are providing insane results, truly. And it's essentially, if you think about what we built, we called it a proprietary trading network because we took the fundamental ideas of what a prop firm is, like FTMO, some of these really successful prop firms like FTMO, is a prime example. And we converted it into a decentralized network of competition. So, you know, a miner can't hit certain drawdowns or they're eliminated. If they hit a 5% daily drawdown or a 10% total drawdown at any point in time, the miner is eliminated. They're weighed based off of two main metrics. One is returns, and the second is risk profile metrics. So we use the two combined to understand not just, hey, you're having high returns, but you're taking all this risk. It's like, no, you got to balance the two. And so we've put that in place. So we're pretty much like, I would say, and then in terms of analysis and understanding the performance of miners, we analyze them based off second by second data. So it's like almost real. It's almost like our validators are pseudo exchanges, analyzing the results of miners and then cross validating across multiple data sources. It's pretty powerful and pretty crazy. Honestly, it's like the most challenging, most fair and rewarding prop firm challenge in the world. That's kind of the way I think of it, right? And prop firm challengers are highly successful businesses. So we knew that this structure would work because we're familiar with how prop firms work and how successful they are. And we up the reg fee, right? So typically, you know, reg fees are, you know, one of the really cool features is we can control reg fees. So the floor price for reg fees is 5 tau. So you have to know what you're doing to register. And then if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get eliminated fast. And then the second point, go ahead.
Arash, in some sense, like one metaphor maybe for what you guys are doing is that the subnet is a prop firm. It's a company.
Yes.
Where you are training your prop signals, but maybe another way to think about it is that you're training a workforce to build a good collective signal. And
yes,
and what exactly have you seen, like peering onto the other side of the network and looking at the miners? What behavior have you seen from them in that regard? Like, is it like 10 people? Or is it hundreds of people that are competing? And like, who are they?
Yeah, these are really good questions. So one of the major things that happens with prop firms and prop firm challenge is the prop firm challenge phase. So before you're able to even receive funding, which is how prop firms work, you have to pass this challenge phase. So all our miners, they can't receive any incentive till they actually pass our challenge phase. And our challenge phase is based off of alignment with incentive. So it's like you have to be able to provide a certain amount of returns, you have to pass a certain amount of risk profile metrics to even be capable of receiving incentive. So like the pool of miners that can even compete means you have a sophisticated trading strategy. So we've already made it so that the people that are even receiving incentive on our tau on our subnet are only high quality miners. And then from there, it's like, okay, now continue to repeat that ability over and over and over again, right? So the way that incentive works is risk profiling is based off longevity of consistency, and then returns is based off of what have you done for me lately. And so the combination provides us this nice kind of ability to determine, which miners are giving us the most returns with the best risk profiling. And we use decay. We provide it inside of our the Discord channel a latest kind of image, a nice visual of what that looks like. But it's this combination that allows us to determine the best miners. And so we see, I think right now, don't quote me, but I think there's like 25 to 50 miners that are all performers that have passed the challenge phase, which is actually quite incredible, to be honest. And the top miners, I mean, if you go to our dashboard, dashboard.taushi.io, and you go track, we're about to update the dashboard to not be organized by returns, but based off of similar metrics to the incentive, to our incentive mechanism. But if you go match the top miners and you go see their historical positions, it's pretty incredible. They have, some of them just like don't lose. I would say Tarvis it exists on the network. We threw it on there, and Tarvis has only lost one time in the last pretty much since inception. It's 45-1, I think, in trades, and the top it's 19th ranked miner, which is, I think, as telling as anything can be. And I would say Tarvis is like pretty sophisticated. So I mean, the miners are really good, and it's really exciting because, as you said, they kind of combine to this ultimate signal, right? And the signal can just be plug and play for our clients. And not only that, imagine training models using the outputted signal. So one of the things that was really exciting for us in terms of just talking novelty, we can use the output of all these signals, right? All these miners are providing signals on all these different asset classes, all these different trade pairs, and we can combine those signals to essentially, thinking of each of these miners as an individual feature, we can combine them to and process them to generate bigger features, like ultimate features for a better model. And so that's kind of like the direction we're heading in, is using the output of PTN to build more sophisticated models for the purposes of trading. And so we believe actually the outputted signals not only can power trading systems today, but they will be the ultimate trading system in the future, where you're taking the output of PTN and you're building models. So we're going to provide all the historical performances, and we're gathering it I think it's like every minute of traders, all the miners, I should say, on the network. And then we're going to allow anybody to train models on it. And that's something that we have a massive plans for. We talked about it with Marketplace of Signals, another community-based project that we're working on. But this ability to essentially use the signals to power models, or just data sources in general to power models. And this idea of the output of PTN being what we'd call theta signals, theta obviously after SN8. And the purposes of the theta signals is to generate these kind of ultimate, if you think about like what it's required to train times, this is something we took away from, this is another takeaway we had from TSPS when we were building the time series prediction subnet, was just how long it takes to build quality time series based models. And the difficulty is your feature set. Like, how good are your features? How well are you able to analyze those features? And this, what we've done is kind of jump started that by using you're going to be using PTN as the basis of those features for models, for the next generation of models. So it's just really powerful. It's really powerful for so many reasons. One, the fact that it's immediately valuable. PTN is immediately valuable. We have partners already selling. And the fact that what I'm really excited about is building that next generation, right? We're always looking forward. How can we push the limits? And PTN building the next gen models for trading, I think is something I'm really excited about.
You touched on a lot of things there, Rash. And the beginning, you were talking about how as part of the incentives for the miners, there's a volatility cap, right? You can't go below some sort of P&L. And how do you measure that? And what are some similarities between that structure and, say, what happens with a normal prop firm?
Yeah. So the way it's measured is we have all the validators plug into real-time data sources, so that are reliable. So they pay for subscriptions for data sources that are good. And we're able to track using sockets real-time data from the from the data sources for these various markets. And then what we do is we judge every, I believe it's every 15 seconds. We have this combination effect where we are looking at real time, and then we actually track historical in case something was missed. It's a really pretty sophisticated system that was built by Jordan, who's our lead engineer on S8, to make sure everything is reliable and we're capable of tracking any all drawdowns at any point in time. But it essentially is able to figure out, it's looking practically at real-time data to figure out if a drawdown is hit by any miner. And the way that drawdown is determined is just the combination of all your positions that you have open. Well, it's actually the max value of your positions historically, right? Like, so you have a bunch of closed positions and you've hit a max, right? It's that local max or that absolute max to where you're at now. And if you've hit a 5% drawdown at day close, or 10% at any point in the day. Say there's some massive wick, right? Like there's a massive drop in the market and you hit 10% at any point in time, you would be eliminated. And this works exactly like a prop firm does, where they have these limitations on a daily basis or an anytime basis. So the two put together accounts for this kind of generalized risk management that's required by miners to abide by, and then layering on the risk profiling that we actually just recently rolled out, or like kind of this. It's actually pretty cool. Like the risk profiling is actually mid trade. So say like you're in the middle of a trade. We're not even just taking closed trades into consideration. It's like you are currently in the middle of trades, and we're taking into account your open positions and the closed positions that you had historically, just everything you've done to determine your risk and also your returns. So it's just an ongoing methodology to determine how good it really is. Kind of like pseudo exchanges in a way that these validators are able to run, which just is a bit of a testament, to be honest, to Jordan, who's done a really fantastic job at putting all of this together as our lead engineer.
So the signals that are coming out are their shorts, right, or their longs, effectively from the miners on a particular position, right? It's position-based market signals.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And
you're long and short and flat.
And could you,
flat means nothing.
You could really expand and to any type of signal, right? You could have them produce like, here's my moving average signal that I follow, or some complicated, who knows what they call it, Fibonacci. I'm not a trader. Fibonacci signals about this particular index, and instead of giving out, say, a buy or a sell or a long or a short, they could say something much more abstract about what the index is saying to them in their model. Like, for instance, maybe like an embedding layer. Would that make sense? Like for somebody with your technical understanding of how markets work, like, do those signals, those intermediate signals, provide any value, or is it best to just have a whole bunch of buys and sells and longs and shorts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's kind of like it would be. I think that's one of those things. So when we're talking about marketplace of signals, right? Moss is we released a white paper on it, and the whole point of marketplace of signals is a separate kind of marketplace. You know, we have the request network where consumers are going to be able to buy data from validators from related to subnets, right? Like various services. Similar concept with Moss, but you're going to have data source providers and then consumers, which are miners, right? And the data source providers are creating various data sources, as you said, kind of this abstraction layer of data, you know, these Fibonacci levels, et cetera, these algorithms that could be created as a data source for miners to plug into their models. And so with Moss, the idea is to build this marketplace where data source providers, or, you know, which could be, again, you know, could be a Fibonacci value, right, that someone's derived, or an algorithm someone's derived based off open or closing prices, that miners can pay for and leverage in their models, and historical data of those features or of that data source could be provided for free. So essentially, like, that's really falling under the fundamental ideas of what we're trying to do with Moss for the purposes of all time series subnets. is provide this place where data source providers, let's just say Lunar Crush, which is one of our partners, wants to sell social engagement data, right? Like who's trending, which altcoins are trending. They want to sell that data to miners or provide that data to miners for them to leverage in their models, right? So they can provide that data through MOS, the marketplace of signals, as a data source provider. And then miners, which are just consumers of that data source, can register and sign up and pay for that data source. So I would say that falls more under like the that kind of category of data and what miners would want to leverage from this marketplace. What we're using as the output of PTN is really the end result of that, right? It's kind of like a concrete value that we know that these features may have been embedded into a model for the purposes of providing this end signal. And so it's more, I'd say more like direct as to exactly what we're able to consume from that and how valuable that is, right? Because we know how good the miner is and how reliable that miner is. So I think that both can, we're working on a lot at Taoshi, Request Network, Marketplace of Signals, PTN, now this committee that we're hoping to build with the rest of the community. So there's a lot going on, but we have these fundamental pieces we want to build for not just for ourselves. So, like Marketplace of Signals is for the community. Like we understand based off our learnings from time series prediction subnet how important it is to have really strong features and enable miners to have better time to value and these subnets to have better time to value. And so we've actually had subnet owners of other time series prediction subnets that are on testnet. They've reached out to us and be like, when is MOS coming out? Like, we want to use it for our miners to plug in data source providers, right? And to create this ecosystem. Same thing with the Request Network, right? Like Validators reaching out to us and other subnet owners reaching out to us to plug in. And yeah, we're just trying to enable as much as we can through both those avenues based off our experience.
And what have you seen so far in terms of clients? What do they find useful from the subnet just today?
Yeah, I would say the ability to take understand who are the top miners based off risk profile and returns, and then being able to track them over time, right? It's kind of like PTN just launched in the last, like a month ago. So everything's pretty new, but we're building these risk profiles on these miners and providing it to our clients. So they can then just use them in their own automated trading strategies. So one thing I haven't actually talked about, and it's still a little bit under wraps, but I guess I'll give a little bit of I'll give a little bit of information on it here. Is we're at Taoshi, we have actually another product we're building, and it's built on top of the Request Network. And we're actually going to consume the signals from PTN for the masses. So what we're building is, I shouldn't give too much away here, but we're building a product to enable automated trading for anybody. So like you can just take you're going to be able to use a sophisticated strategy built off of PTN that's transformed and usable for yourself on any exchange. So like, you can just plug and play with cash. And so we will actually be an end client ourselves. And what our end client, it's very similar to what our current clients are doing, which is, hey, I want to use the top miners on the network. And I just like right now, Timeless, which is one of our partners, they provide signals into from the top miners that they've been tracking into a Telegram channel, and they sell a subscription for that. They're looking to implement automated trading for high-end clientele. They're actually wealth managers privately. They're anon through Telegram and through interactions, but they're actually wealth managers. So they're looking for high-end clientele.
How does the market for signals exist outside of Bittensor? So are there companies on Wall Street that sell signals? Hey, we'll send you a signal for $1 per signal.
They will wrap that into an automated trading product at scale. So, or they'll leverage it for their own hedge fund, right, to execute trades. So when you're talking at scale and for like high-end clientele, they typically want things white gloved, right? So for them, it's more like take the signals, generate a strategy around the signals provided, like, essentially deciphering what percent of portfolio is allocated to different miners. When I talk about like formulating your strategy, I'm talking about like how to best use the signals and diversify strategy across those miners, because they are all very good. And it's kind of like, how do we determine how best to use and what percent of portfolio each should be using to do proper risk management on our side, because you have all these miners that are doing so well. So from their end, it's like, let's just take Timeless, who's doing high-end clientele. They're going to white glove. So they bring on these really high-end clients. They do the implementation for them. They charge a management fee. And essentially, the funds run in the accounts for those high-end clientele.
When it comes to signals and their value in an open network like Subnet 8, how does the network protect against just raw copying? And is that even a problem?
Yeah, it's interesting. When you're talking something as there's two parts to this. One, when you're talking something as difficult to do as providing actual signals on trading, a miner could get eliminated at any point in time, right? Like you really could. Like say the market drops. So if you're plagiarizing or copying off another miner, you're really putting yourself at risk a bit for the purposes of trying to copy. But we actually have created, we understand, we've been creating a methodology, and Thomas, our lead ML scientist, has been putting this together. We throw Thomas at a bunch of things. So he's creating a plagiarism mechanism. So it flags, currently right now it flags miners who are based off of criteria that we put together, this formula, to determine if they're copying or plagiarizing off another miner. And it's not necessarily to like eliminate them yet, but we are flagging. So we understand, and we have made it known to the community that we are actively monitoring for plagiarism. So if someone is cheating off another miner, like they do get flagged. We've already seen flags pop up, and we will be notifying the community. And this system will transition to an automated system. So we are not like actively monitoring. It's one of those things where it's kind of touchy. You don't want to throw something out into the community. It's like, you'll get automatically eliminated if you get caught cheating, right? You want to have kind of this intermediate step, which is flagging, letting the community know, hey, we're watching, right? And then it's kind of like, okay, now we're going to eliminate by hand, and all the validators inherit. And then it's like, okay, now we've gone automated with this system. So we're doing it stepwise intentionally to ensure that we're not overstepping ourselves, on how we want to do this, because it is touchy, and make sure we do it right. So it's one of those stepwise things. But yes, we are. It is one of those things where it's like, if you do plagiarize, you're kind of putting yourself at risk, right? Because how do you know how good the person you're tracking is?
Sometimes you want to, if you find an issue like that, you want to. There's two ways to go about it. One is to try to protect against it. Another way to think about the problem can be leaning into it, accepting that people are going to copy, and then making that a feature and not a bug. A good example is like, say, Subnet 9, like the copying of other people's models is the process through which data is shared between them. And and that makes sense for language models where you want to train off different people's commits. Some people don't like it. Some people do like it. I think it's actually the quality. If you're measuring something precisely, like say loss,
it makes a signal stronger. Actually,
yeah.
Like in the end, it would.
Yeah, like it's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to copy you, but I'm going to do just slightly better, right?
Yeah.
And if you lean into it, perhaps you can have the miners actually make copying just an easy ergonomic decision on behalf of their output. Hey, well, okay, copy this guy. My output is whatever that guy said. Plus, when he's doing that, I do that. When the signal looks like this, it's like that. Or do you see what I'm saying? Like, let the miners.
Yeah, no, totally.
If the miners can produce epiphenomenal copying, right, where they take copying to the next level and they dive in, okay, and you're not like, we're going to try to stop copying, we're going to promote it. What would that look like? And
I think that's a great point. It's a great point. That's also something we're talking about with theta signals, and then eventually creating models using the signals. It's like, well, then, we're building out all open source. So it's like, well, the miners, the new set of miners are going to be learning from the signals from the network and using it, right? So yeah, it's very possible that ends up being the direction. And again, this is why it's important as subnet owners to like not rush or not freak out. It's like just monitor and think very thoughtfully of like how you want this to actually work out. And so we're monitoring, but we're at the same time like trying to learn what exactly we're looking for. And that's a great point you bring up. Like maybe it makes better signal, maybe which is not a bad thing, right?
Exactly. Maybe it makes it, maybe you, like when you're talking about hierarchical models, for instance, as you just mentioned, like miners are using, you are using the outputs of multiple miners as inputs to yourself. What if you just let the miners do that themselves? And what would that look like? Can you make that easy for them? And then what's the convergence point? Does it mean that maybe the convergence point is, hey, I need to produce something beyond just copying because everyone's copying, right? And that becomes the baseline of the signal, and maybe that takes you forward in time. Like that was a little bit what happened on Subnet 9. I'm not sure how that would be structured on your subnet, but it's pro openness, right? And we benefit from openness and incentivization as a technology, and it's good to lean into that. The anonymity is a billion headed hydra, right? If you start trying to govern things, it's impossible. We have to lean into, okay, great. We want people to be anonymous. We want people to follow code as law here and there, as when the time is right. And so yeah, like these are really cool ideas. Like I think that you have a whole domain to explore here, Arash. Like there's so many cool ideas. It's almost like you need more subnets to be able to do all of the things that you want to do. And I mean, would you say that's true? Like, do you wish you had 6 subnets?
I think it's like try to maximize. This is something we've talked about too. It's just like, how do you like maximize as much like on a single subnet, like instead of spreading to many, right? It's like make the most value, the most revenue, the most, just the most value. I don't want to talk strictly about revenue, but like, for on a single subnet before expanding to other ones. But it is very possible that there's going to be many subnets that kind of converge to create a better product here. But I think, that's something that we'll explore with time. Right now, PTN keeps us pretty busy to make sure that it's the best product possible, right? And that's really our concentration. And then obviously the request network. I think I actually meant to come on this call to talk less about S8, but I know we ended up talking quite a bit about it. I wanted to talk more about the request network and how we can enable the community with it.
Let's talk about
but yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, so the request network is something that we've kind of drawn up for quite a while, right? I think we've talked about this for months now, and the idea behind the request network has always been, these, when you talk about a subnet, the data or the ability to extract the information is held by the validators, and how do we enable the validators to further spread that information? How do we make them storefronts potentially for consumers? And that's the whole idea behind the request network is how can let's enable the validators to be able to take this valuable information they're getting, or these valuable services they can provide, and provide it to others for a fee. Or for free, right? Depends what they want to do with it. And that's the whole idea behind the request network. So consumers can register. So what we do on our end, some high level concepts of what we're trying to do is we want to enable, we want to keep things peer-to-peer, right? As decentralized as possible. That's a fundamental idea behind it. So, not trying to have all payments route through us, not have all requests route through us, right? Like remove those kind of concepts where where things would have, where we would have to be the middleman, or any entity would have to be the middleman, right? So that was one of the big concepts behind it, and kind of be able to provide this for the community. That was another major pillar of what we're trying to do, is enable the subnets, enable the validators to be able to do this frictionless, and for them really to enable them to be a storefront for themselves, and the subnet owners to have some level of interaction.
Did you make this open source?
This will be open source, yes. Yeah.
So is there anywhere I can go to look at this?
Yeah, I should ask. I think it. So yeah, let me actually provide it. Please, you guys, do not break. I just provided it in the novelty search chat. I can't screen share because it's I can't plug in. But it's for some reason I'm only stuck on my phone for this call. But please don't break anything yet. It's still testing, okay, guys? But the idea here, yeah, I feel like constantly you're about to like jump in there and start ripping away.
I mean, I could share my screen.
Yeah, go ahead. I think it'd be great. Yeah, we can kind of walk through this a little bit. The idea, there's going to be some things that we're cleaning up and making it cleaner to better understand how it all works. But fundamentally, the idea here is that validators validate their accounts, or we are able to authorize their accounts by actually looking at using their wallet. So we have them sign, and we check their wallet against registration. And it's kind of a process to ensure the validators are who they say they are, and they are actually on the subnet. They are validated on the subnet.
Here I am, plug into Bittensor. Am I a client or who am I?
Yeah, I think validator process can be a little bit more intense. You can go ahead and click it, but yeah, I think it's going to require you to authorize that you are a validator on the subnet, and there's quite a bit there.
I'll just go client. I don't.
Okay, yeah, that's probably gonna be cleaner and easier. Yeah, I wouldn't go the other route right now. Yeah, so you can see, you can just choose any subnet. Yeah, and Roundtable 21 has been really fundamental or foundational in us testing. If you go right now, everything's kind of grayed out because there's no other services, but you can see we're doing testing right now. So you go to PTN and then you click next. You'll see that there's services. Roundtable 21 is one of them. We have Lucas, who's our lead engineer building all of the request network. Is on there.
They're not letting me in.
They're not letting you in. Yeah, so it's a little bit blocked right now. But yeah, you're able to through the request network, you're able to have that foundational interaction with validators and choose from the services they create. So you can on PTN, you can choose various services. On the request network, you can choose the services of. There's not much to show here. I'll see if I can get some more images and designs out. But we're just doing testing right now on staging, this is our staging environment. So I said, please don't be gentle. But yeah, the fundamental ideas here is you as a consumer can view the services of validators, see the terms of the services, understand what the services rendered are, choose to agree to them. The validator now knows that you've signed up, that you've registered, and you are able to use Web3 payment. So it actually tracks. The validator provides an ERC20 wallet. Everything is in ERC20 on the Web3 side. So with Web3, validators can provide their ERC20 wallet, which is the deposit wallet. And the consumer has their ERC20 wallet, and they deposit payment into the validator's ERC20 wallet. So it's all, we can track everything essentially via the dashboard for validators and clients.
This is really interesting. Now, I'll tell you why I'm fascinated by what you're doing, Arash. In my mind, is you're building. It sounds like you're building, this is open source, but primarily you guys are providing a service for validators to monetize themselves without them needing to go through the process of becoming a core cell or like an OpenTensor.ai service provider that sells access to the network. You're saying, hey, come join this collective use our really beautiful front end, get access, and then you can sell that externally. So you're kind of co-locating a whole bunch of validators, it sounds like. Is that right?
Yeah, we're putting all the validators in this marketplace for them to interact and get consumers, right? So we can get all the consumers in one place, all the validators in one place, and facilitate all that interaction in a single location. Right. And then the actual interactions and payments are all decentralized and peer-to-peer. So we're not involved in any of the, and then we can track it all. So we know the wallets for the interactions. So we know what payments have been made, so we can display it on the dashboard. We have a server that's run on a per validator basis. And the validator server collects information as to requests made. So we were going to know throughput across all subnets, right? We're going to know traffic information. We're going to know revenue information across all subnets that use the request network. And we're going to be able to display that to all the validators. And we're going to be able to aggregate that to a higher level of the Bittensor dashboard. So we're going to be able to know all the revenue from all the subnets per validator. Like, it's going to be filterable on a dashboard like that we can provide anybody. And we'll know throughput too, right? Like, we'll know like how many transactions are being done on a per SN or per validator basis.
Does this mean that you'll be building a package that you effectively can take to any validator and be like, hey, look, come connect your validator and run this code in our system, and we're going to give you this revenue?
Oh, the revenue is all in them, right? We don't take any cut. So if they want to come run or provide a service or spin up a service, right now, they take home all of it. Like it's all Web3 wallets, right? Like, so like the interaction of the service, what the data is provided to consumers and the payment made by consumers is all away from us. We are just monitoring, right? We just have pretty much read access to what's going on, making sure that things are being done correctly from an auditing perspective. But outside of that, we're not facilitating any of that.
And so you've already signed up some validators to help you out.
Yes, Roundtable 21 in particular has been they've provided us feedback this entire time as we're working through all this. You saw them in the service. So they're actually doing testing on staging, and then our plan is this month. So last month was get this thing on staging, right? Let's get this thing started to get tested. This month is let's get all the validators on staging. Let's get them all onto PTN as a starting point for a subnet. And then, and so all the validators are live on mainnet for our version of mainnet for Request Network. And then in June, we onboard all subnets. That's our plan.
And I see that you guys are putting together, this is your dashboard. That's looking nice. Not there yet.
Yeah, I want to also, oh, here we go. I don't know how I'm going to share this. Let me see if I can upload this. This is going to be really cool. Please, again, I just got this shared with me, but you can pop that open, Cons. I just shared that in chat.
You want me to pop up the image on my screen?
Yeah, the image. Yeah, can you do that?
Yes, I can. Let's do that.
So ignore some of the wonkiness of the charts themselves, but yeah, this is kind of where we're going towards. So not just providing this place for the interaction, but analytics on a for validators and consumers. So they can see how much they're making. They can see requests made. They can see the number of consumers signed up. They can see the health of their services. They're going to be able to filter on a per service basis that they're providing, like on a per subnet basis. They can see the revenue over time, requests over time. They can see the number of, they can even go into individual transactions. They can see the consumers. They can see how many consumers have stopped payment. They can follow up with those consumers. So if a consumer has stopped paying, you can say what's going on, right? Or you can follow up.
This is the validators.
Yeah, for the validator side. And
so this is the validator going, okay, great. Am I being able to monetize this here? That's really cool.
Right.
And so you guys provide this service for them to, run a classic B2B or even B2C style, profitable business with telemetry and statistics and a clean dashboard. So this is really cool. So, what was the model for this? Where did this idea come from? I guess just from need, right? These validators came to you and said, hey, look, we want a way of doing this. Help us build this.
Yeah, I mean, we just look at the fundamental idea behind Bittensor, right? Like we're creating these, we're trying to have all these subnets create valuable output or services. It was such a need to have something. And when you think about the way that needed to be built, it needed to be built in a peer-to-peer or decentralized way, and needed to be built with the validators in mind to make services easy to render, right? Easy to plug in. It needed to be able to track information. It needed to be able to do this kind of auditing or the ability to track things publicly. So Web3 made a lot of sense. We allow for Web2 as well, by the way. If a validator wants to do Web2, they can. They need to self-report their revenue for our purposes of dashboarding. That's kind of we will recommend all validators go Web3 because I think the ability to see this from a community perspective and track like how everything is being done and make sure nothing is slipping through the cracks from a visibility perspective is important. But yeah, I mean, fundamentally, we knew we needed to build with these things in mind. And the need is just felt pretty obvious. Even I think I thought about building this in like September. Right? Like this was like months and months ago. I was like, man, we really need something like a request layer, or something on top of subnets to facilitate this interaction. What would be really cool is the services rendered can now be used across subnets too. So one subnet can launch a service, and another subnet can leverage that service by plugging in as a consumer. So like we have cross subnet interaction directly through the request network as well. So there's some really cool components here that are going to be in play that are going to be really powerful. Like there's going to be a layer now on top of the request network of these different products that are built, right? Combining the efforts of various subnets into one. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's going to be really cool to see the end result, right? Like all of these consumer apps really that are going to be enabled through the request network.
Are subnet owners participating in this process or helping you with this and saying, hey, like this is how we want to do monetization of our subnets and this is how we can help you?
Yeah, we're gonna move in that direction. Probably, we haven't gotten feedback, and honestly, we've kept the payment methodology pretty simple to start, which is just a monthly sub, because it can get really complex. So we are going to open the door to hear from them like how they want to do payments, because some might want to do like per ping, right? Like every time there's a request made, you have to fulfill like there's a payment made. And we understand that there's going to be a different dynamic. So we want to start small and then just hear feedback and then build features for the community from that feedback.
Very cool, Arash. So does anybody do validators have to be able to read this text here? Is this important?
I think that's just a bunch of jumbled text right now. Actually, I think it was just a message. It's a sample message. This again. Please don't kill us. This is all like what's on staging. Like everything is. This is a design that's fresh. Like literally, I went to Slack and pulled it from Kenneth, who's our designer, and just threw it in here. So please don't kill us.
What is who's going to be healthy here or not healthy? If that gets down to zero, what happens? You just die?
Well, I think you're going to have some pretty upset consumers, right? So not only do we have a validator dash, we're going to have consumer dash, and very possibly we have a notification system. So you can get alerts, messages based off the health of your what's going on with the from the validators, from the services you've signed up for. So health is kind of like this idea of like, what's your uptime, how many requests have you fulfilled, how many errors have you received. Like your ability as a validator to ensure that you have high uptime. And as a consumer, it's going to be really fascinating because now subnet owners are going to need to make sure that they think about bandwidth, they think about differentiation for their validators, right? Like how do you differentiate the value that one validator or another validator can provide? And from a validator perspective, like how can you differentiate, right? Like how can you provide a better service? And so health is going to be one of those dynamics, right? It's like making sure that you have really good reliability, uptime, load balancing, redundancy, et cetera, on your end to make sure requests get fulfilled. So if you're a consumer, you're looking for, what is the service provided, but also the health of that service.
Well done, Arash. This has been scintillating and really exciting, actually. Really cool that this is being built in the background. We talked a lot about stuff. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about the request-let network. We talked about PTN, the prop firm that's being built on 8, and so much more. Man, thank you so much for coming up on stage and talking with us. Now it's been the hour, and let's take it off here. And hopefully you come back. Thanks for everyone for coming, and see you next week.
Thanks for having me. This was great.